It's Song Talk Radio.
Welcome to Song Talk Radio, the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of songwriting. We share tips, tools, and techniques, and together we all become better at writing songs. Dialing in from our Toronto headquarters, I'm Neil Modi, and my usual co-host Phil Emery is off yo-yoing zebras. That's a reference to YYZ, in case you didn't get that. Subtle joke. All right. And for those of you not in the YYZ, that's the airport code for Toronto. Anyway. For everyone else, please send your comments and questions to @SongTalkRadio on Facebook or Instagram, or feedback@songtalk.ca for the email, and we'll share your thoughts on the show. And please visit songtalk.ca to see the show post for this episode and to find links to resources we mention, and to download lyric and chord sheets to follow along with the songs that we feature. Tonight, we're happy to welcome Seattle-based singer-songwriter Mark Ippolito to the show. How you doing, Mark?
I'm great, Neil. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on the show. I know you've been a longtime follower of the show, and actually you joined us at our 10-year anniversary episode back in 2023, which was a blast to do. So very cool to have you. But I believe this is the first time. This is the first time you've been on the show as a bona fide guest.
Indeed. No, I'm honored to be a part of it. Song Talk Radio is a fabulous resource, and hopefully I can give back a little bit to the community that you've fostered and developed over so many years. So happy to share my learnings.
Very nice. That's great to hear. And yeah, for sure you will. And before we get to Mark's stuff, just another small announcement about our songwriting challenge for 2025, which is to write a song in an odd time signature. And of course, we have a dedicated webpage on the website, songtalk.ca. You can check out where we have a couple of episodes or launch episode with composer Frank Horvath a couple of weeks ago, and as well an episode we did ourselves in 2023 showcasing a bunch of songs in odd time signatures. So a lot of stuff to review and look over. And of course, feedback at songtalk.ca. Shoot us any questions you might have about the challenge, and we're happy to get back to you. We haven't set a deadline yet for listener songs to be submitted, but of course we do invite our listeners, as always, to submit your song, have it showcased on the podcast. I think last year we did 4 episodes of the songwriting challenge answers from our listeners, which is amazing. I'm pretty sure you submitted in the past, Mark, a couple
2 times. Yeah, twice.
2 times.
Yeah, it's a wonderful process, and really enjoyed the feedback that I got as a result. That was fantastic.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, that's what we like to hear. All right. So be on the stay tuned to the podcast basically for the next couple of months, and we'll be talking more about it and getting our songs in place, and then go to the listener songs. So we'll stay tuned for deadlines and things. Okay, Mark Ippolito is a proud member of the Seattle's vibrant community of singer-songwriters and regularly performs his original songs in venues throughout the Pacific Northwest. His debut full-length album, New Moon, is steeped in equal measures of folk, roots, jazz, and rock, and reflects Mark's abiding interest in celebration of the interconnectedness, both physical and spiritual. Human beings have far more in common than we may claim as our differences. The stories Mark shares in his songs inspire listeners to see this fundamental truth. Okay, and we're going to be listening tonight to Mark's song, Where Will I Sleep Tonight? But first, I want to get a little bit from you, Mark, about the process behind this, because it was based on a book, The Devil's Highway. How did that connection work as far as writing the song?
Yeah, no. So I've been privileged, as I said, we have a very vibrant songwriter community here in the Seattle area. And I think since 2012, an organization called the Bushwick Book Club has been hosting monthly events here in Seattle. And the premise is pretty straightforward. Bushwick Book Club selects a book, puts it out to the community of songwriters, and says, hey, we'd like to have you write a song and perform it in front of a live audience inspired by this book. So long history, many hundreds of songwriters over the years have participated. This was my second time participating. And yeah, this book was part of a series this year in 24 and 25. Bushwick decided to focus on banned books. So books like Fahrenheit 451, Mouse, MAUS, Art Spiegelman book was one. So, and a number of others. But here's the poster for the book that I did, The Devil's Highway by Luis Alberto Urrea. And this book came out more than 20 years ago. I think it was published in 2001. And side story, why was it a banned book? Well, it's the story of 26 Mexican citizens who elected to migrate into the U.S., crossing the border illegally. And they went through a part of the desert in Arizona called the Devil's Highway. And it has that euphemism for real reasons. It is a very, very difficult place to migrate through. Unfortunately, during that time in 2000, when this happened, 14 of those Mexican citizens lost their lives in the desert due to just the extreme heat and deprivation that they experienced in that crossing. And so Urrea just decided, he's an author of many best-selling books, fiction and nonfiction, but he decided to spend almost a year researching kind of the circumstances of the death of these migrants who were crossing the border, and hence the book came out. It was banned in the state of Arizona because the state determined that two things: that there was devil worship was being celebrated. Now, you may or may not know a little bit about Mexican culture. It incorporates different things like Santeria, which is a spiritual worship, voodoo, a different type of spiritual worship. So, and there's like a very passing reference to it in the book. So, very odd. And then the second was that it was said that the Border Patrol, the U.S. Border Patrol, was not portrayed in a positive light. And Urrea, in multiple interviews and in the book itself, goes to great length to talk about just, again, the Border Patrol can be critiqued for all kinds of things, but to a person, he said, we're incredibly empathetic, incredibly caring. And in fact, when the call went out that the first of the walkers was identified by a helicopter or a plane, they thought, we're in trouble. I mean, they were on scene within 10 minutes. I mean, so, it was just very, very odd that this book would be banned. Nevertheless, it was part of this banned book series. And so, so that's kind of a little bit of the backstory of what inspired the song.
Right on. Wow, that's really fascinating. That's a whole thing I've heard of and I've done once in my life, is read a song based on a book. But it really, it's an interesting exercise because, most songwriters, even songwriters that come onto this podcast, are writing from personal experience. And here you are,
mm-hmm.
You're being forced to inhabit some other character, someone else's story, essentially, mm-hmm. and translate a song out of that. So that's a really interesting. It's kind of a different process than what we're normally.
Yeah, and to be clear, Neil, certainly, as a white middle-aged male sitting here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest, it's not my story to tell, right? The story of migrants crossing the border. Like, I would never pretend to think that I could tell that story, right? The story that they share of, leaving families, leaving loved ones, all in service to really trying to build a better life. These weren't cartel members or all the other kind of horror stories you hear. These were just men and they were all men, who chose to leave their families and had every intention of coming back to Mexico. They were going to just simply provide for their families, right? To get work and find payment for work that they couldn't get locally, right? So some of them were headed to Florida to go pick oranges. Some of them were going to go do construction jobs for a season and then come back because they needed to send a child to school, or they were looking to build an extra room onto their home because they now had 2 more children that they wanted to have more space to provide for. So, that's not my story to tell, right? So I'm really clear about that. And so what I attempted to do, and I'll let the listeners, evaluate this on its merit, is kind of universalize that emotion, that feeling that I think we all can relate to, which is, making sacrifice to try and improve our lives in some way. And we all do that in some different way, shape, or form, right? And the other thing I really wanted to touch on was just, again, as a tribute to these men, the love that they had for the people that they left behind and for the families who loved them. And so I try to impart that emotion into the song. And again, I hope that's something that all the audience can relate to and respond to, and on its own merit, absent or besides the story that perhaps inspired it.
Right on. Okay, wow. All right, okay, let's get started then by listening to Mark's song. This is called Where Will I Sleep Tonight? And remember, listeners, you can find the lyric sheet on the show post at songtalk.ca to follow along. Here we go.
Where will I sleep tonight? Where will I sleep tonight? When I'm over the border, I think of you. I'll walk a few more miles, then I'll sleep tonight. Where will you be tonight? Take our baby in your arms and hold her tight. Stand by the window, turn on the lights. That's where I'll be tonight. How did I get here? How far have I fallen behind? Why did I leave her? Do I have what it takes to survive? Oh, where will I sleep tonight? much longer do I have what it takes to survive? Oh, will I see you tonight? I'm coming home. I'm coming home.
Wow. That's a song that really takes its time.
Yeah, no, I wasn't rushing it.
No.
I wasn't rushing
Yeah. It occurred to me I was listening to it. It was like, because I'm a drummer, I was like, how would you decide the tempo of this song? Like, you want it to be spacious and long, but at the same time, you don't want it to be like, really like too slow.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because there is a groove, but it moves, but it's like a very slow kind of. It is. I don't know. Is that like a metaphor for walking through the desert? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it was a death march. I mean, let's call it what it was. I mean, so definitely I was trying to have the music also convey, the suffering that these folks enjoy. Now, again, I don't want listeners to suffer listening to it. Hopefully there's enough there's enough sparkle and things happening that will keep the listeners interested. But yeah, no, that was very much the intent behind it.
Mm-hmm. I'll also give a shout out to your trumpet player on that.
Yeah, oh, totally. Bill Jones on trumpet, Ben Mish on piano, and Amy Zoe on percussion. Fantastic players, all of them, all local here in Seattle. And Bill in particular, he was the first musician I recruited because when I wrote the theme, I sat at a keyboard and came up with the motif for what I wanted for the trumpet part.
Oh, I see.
And so I sent him the sheet, and I wrote out the notations for it, and then sent it to him, and then he brought his playing experience, right? Because I'm sitting there on a keyboard tapping out notes, which is very different than a trumpet player actually blowing their breath and expressing each note so beautifully. And so, he brought his artistry to, the score, if you will.
Right. Yeah, because I even had that thought when I was listening to it, is that it's very appropriate somehow. Like the trumpet melody as well takes its time. It's not like some fancy show-offy trumpet thing.
Yeah, he commented as well. He does a lot of Mardi Gras and marching band style music, a lot of jazz. And so for him, this was a very, very different project. And I think that was the reason why he embraced it. He told me so. He said, this just allows me to kind of take my creativity as a player in some places that I don't normally play. So it was a great exercise for him. So it was a wonderful collaboration. If I also may, I'll give a shout out to some Canadian artists who influenced this song. Are you ready?
Please. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm sure you're familiar
There's only
with
like 10 people in Canada, right? So
right. I'm sure you're familiar with the singer-songwriter Kathleen Edwards. Kathleen is she kind of rocketed to fame in the 90s. Had about a 10, 12-year very successful career as a touring artist, playing all the national TV shows and circuits and festivals here in the States and around the world, and then took a break. More recently, she came back on tour just in 2024 to tour some new music and a new record she had put out, and she was brilliant. She played here in Seattle. Her warm-up act was a gentleman by the name of Ken Yates. And I don't know if that name rings a bell with you, but for your listeners, if you haven't heard, Kathleen Edwards is brilliant. I mean, she's got just a huge catalog of beautiful music. But Ken is a young man, and he's got 2 or 3 records out, and he blew me away. I mean, it's one of those wonderful surprises, when you go to a show and you're going to see the opener, or excuse me, the lead act, and Kathleen was fabulous. But Ken came out and did a 30, 40-minute set and just blew me away. And it was his guitar playing that actually influenced the harmonic underpinning and that tempo, because he had a couple of songs that kind of fell into that groove. And so I literally came home that night, plugged in my electric guitar and started, fiddling around with some different ideas that I had, and then parked it for like 3 months. Like I didn't go back to it until I read this book, and then started thinking about, and I was like, oh, wait a second, that could be an interesting kind of starting point for this song. And so shout out to Ken Yates for his incredible artistry and playing and inspiration for
right.
some of my own music.
It just
and
goes
I'm sure,
to show,
you're listening.
Yeah, it just goes to show, like, never throw away some idea that's unfinished, because you never know what could come of it. Some,
Exactly.
Even years later. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, I recently read Jeff Tweedy's book, Write One Song. I don't know if you've come across his great
I've heard
book.
of it.
Jeff Tweedy's the lead singer from Wilco, founder of Wilco and founding man. And he talks about this very idea, like, just wake up every morning, and if there's anything that you've got, just capture it in some way, shape, or form. So, with the iPhone now, right? I mean, I've got literally hundreds, so I'm never starving for an idea. Like if I feel dry or like, I don't really know, I'll just go back and I'll listen to something that maybe I recorded a snippet of a month ago, 2 months ago, 6 months ago, and be like, oh, let me try extending that a little bit more, and the more I find I do that, the more kind of productivity and results I seem to have. So I've really taken to that idea.
Right on. Do you like catalog them or tag them somehow? It's like if you got hundreds of them, you just go
it's funny. I just instinctively give them a name, and not that becomes the name of the song, but somehow those names actually then remind me of what that theme or that idea was about. So I'll have like, here's my ones from this week. Ready? Radiant, Whispers and Wax, Plenty Paradox. So, I just come up with these.
Yeah.
Memory Palace. Just, that's kind of what I think that song could be about. Now, that may not be the ultimate name of the song, or it may not even be the theme or the lyrics that I developed for it. But those are the kind of prompts for me. I'll go back. Oh, Memory Palace. That's right. I remember that one. And I'll just go back and listen to it again.
These are little lyrical snippets or musical snippets, or it could be anything. Both. Yeah.
And I can be in the car driving, and I'll just start humming a melody line that I come up with. Don't do that at home, kids. But absolutely. I'm a runner. I like to run a couple times a week, and invariably when I'm running, when my mind is freed up from whatever it's bottled up with, I'll come up with something. And I'll immediately come home and I'll just hum a few bars, or I'll sit at the piano or pick up my guitar and just strum a few notes, whatever it was, just so I don't lose that. And then over the coming days or weeks, I might develop it. So yeah, I do that quite a bit. And then I am just a voracious reader, and I don't say that just because of Bushwick and the project that I worked on, but I'm just constantly reading poetry, essays, fiction, nonfiction, historical stuff. And I can't read a book without having my notes app open. And there's always some phrase, some reference, something that, I think, gosh, that would be an interesting starting point for a song, or perhaps even just a line in a lyric that will show up somewhere else. So constantly just creating this repository of assets that I can go back to and draw from.
Cool. I've noticed that every time I take a phrase like that, like if it's from something I'm reading, more often than not, I'm reinterpreting it into something else. Like the meaning of it,
right.
The meaning that it becomes in the song has nothing to do with the source of where it came from.
Exactly. Right. Because then you're processing it through your own filter and emotions and your own reality of what you're dealing with. Right. And so, and that's,
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit more about where will I sleep tonight? What
sure.
Did you go through many versions of this, or editing on this, or did it all kind of pour out at once, or you had that guitar bit to start with?
I did have I had the music pretty early on. I had the overall harmonic, the chord structure, and then the two sections of the song, and the melody was pretty clear in my head as well. The lyrics, as I said, were as I said earlier, I couldn't just simply tell a story of migrants crossing the border and dying. Like, that's just not my story to tell, as I mentioned earlier. So I did have multiple iterations of the lyrics. It took a while for it to come together. And as I look at I'm looking at I have 13 pages of notes in my Google Doc before I got to the final kind of edit. I too did come up with kind of things that I was thinking about. I was thinking about the border as a metaphor. I was thinking about the desert, specifically that environment, as a metaphor. And then I was thinking about dreams and more actually like aspirations, not dreaming in terms of mystical dreaming, but aspirations and what that might. So those kinds of three things, I developed lists and lists and lists of words that I thought I could potentially integrate into lyrics. And that's an approach that I find is just very healthy, because it's difficult for me as a songwriter. It's rare that like I just sit and just start writing lyrics. Like, it's usually I think about three things that I want to say in the song. And that's just my process. Kind of typical story arc, beginning, middle, and end, right? What are the three things that I want to convey in usually 3 minutes? 5 minutes is pretty long, right? It's longer than most of the songs that I write, for sure. And then once I have those three ideas, then I just start developing word lists, like what words would I want to express or use potentially in a lyric? And that I find is then a great jumping off point for me to actually start developing lines and pulling those things together into lyrical lines. But yeah, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 versions. And then, I was getting kind of frustrated. So I kind of said, I just need to go to a quiet place. And I literally took my trusty, and I don't use this nearly as much, but I took my old Moleskine to the library and I just sat there, and then I just wrote the whole song. Nice. And that became the final. But it was a process of kind of...
Yeah. Well, with just the Moleskine, because I was going to ask you, because one thing about this song... Okay, I was saying it doesn't rhyme, but there are a few rhymes in here. But you ever, like, during that word generation process, you ever consult a rhyming dictionary to find, like, words that rhyme with those words?
Oh, yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah, rhyme zones on Google is kind of one of my...
Yeah, I love Rhyme Zone.
Bookmarked.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I say going through those word lists. Then as I start to develop actual lyrical lines, and that's the point when I might start to actually say, well, geez, how could I create a rhyme here? And then I'll consult some of those resources to, if one doesn't come kind of from...
Well, one thing I like to point out to our listeners, especially if you're considering using a rhyming dictionary, you've never used one before or whatever. And maybe this is obvious, but I still want to say it. Like, you don't just go and find words that rhyme with the words that you've come up with. You come up with a bunch of keywords and stuff. You consult the rhyming dictionary. It's going to give you a ton of words. You need to pick out the ones that are like, that one generates an idea for me combined with this other word that actually creates something valuable, like something that's meaningful in my lyric. It doesn't, because otherwise, because I've been accused of that before in a song where it's like, yeah, you put that in just to get the rhyme and it doesn't really support the song. Like, yeah, I know, kind of thing, right? Because you don't want to be in that position where rhymes. It would rhyming for the sake of rhyming by itself. No.
Yeah. And then, there's no, that's dead on. I mean, rhyming for rhyming's sake is just kind of leads you to, some things that typically for me aren't as satisfying. It has to resonate as part of the story that you're trying to tell, as a part of the scene that you're trying to describe. If it doesn't do that, then just because it rhymed doesn't make it a better song. And
that's hard.
And then I also lean a lot on near rhymes. It is hard to do. It's very hard to do. It's that's why they call it craft. Right.
Yeah.
It's 10% inspiration, 90% perspiration. I mean, it is a craft. I mean, for me, it is. I admire, especially folks who seem to have just a huge facility for it. I met a local musician recently who's a fantastic rapper, and man, I mean, volumes of rhyming
Yeah.
couplets just coming out, like hundreds of them in one song,
Yeah, I know. It's
and I'm
ridiculous.
just so wildly impressed by that. It's amazing, amazing talent. I don't have that. I've got to work it. I've really got to work it. And but that's okay. I love the process. And when you put the effort into it, at least for me, when I put the effort into it and come up with something that is enjoyable for me and hopefully for listeners, it's just that much more satisfying.
Is that the datum for you? It's got to satisfy you. Like you say, you went through many iterations and 30 pages worth of notes or whatever. But how do you know when you're done? How do you know when you've reached that point?
Great question. You just kind of know when you know, at least for me. You know, I like you. I'm a huge music fan. I listen to so much music, and so for me, I've got this internal bar that I've set for myself, which is, is this something that I would come back and listen to again, right? Regardless if my name's on it or not, And so unless I hit that bar, like, is this something that I would come back to listen to again? I'm going to keep working it, or I may dispose it. It just has to be that interesting to me personally. And then, like I say, hopefully it's as interesting to the listener, and that's one of the joys of going out and performing live is you get that feedback from people who come up to you after a show and just like, wow, you totally nailed that emotion or that idea or that scene. That was something that I felt, but I couldn't express, but you got it for me. That's the best payoff of all for me as a songwriter.
Right on. Yeah. The feedback circles and things like that can be really valuable, and it's really nice. It's nice it's nice that songwriting is a pretty forgiving craft in that you can take someone's feedback, try it. If you don't like it, you just go back to what you had before, or you meet somewhere in the middle with a suggestion, right? It's like nothing is for sure. But that's really interesting because sometimes you can get some feedback from somebody. I wrote a song recently, and I shared it with somebody, a close friend of mine actually, and he said that, oh, your song is about X, and I'm like, actually, it's not, but the first verse does make it sound like that. So
yeah.
I took someone else's suggestion who suggested the same thing, and I flipped around the verse in the first verse in the bridge, and it was like, oh yeah, this makes a heck of a lot more sense because sometimes it takes an outside perspective to sort of because you know what your song means, right? Even if it's an obtuse lyric or something that's kind of hidden with a metaphor or whatever, you know what your song means.
What inspired it, yeah.
Or what inspired it, or where it came from, or all the stories behind it, right? So it's really hard to look outside your own perspective and think as an audience member, if they heard this for the first time, what are they going to get out of it, and try and see it objectively.
Exactly. And like I say, that really ultimately is my goal because, and this has been reinforced with me so many times, like I say, by audience members. Once the song is done and I've performed it, it really isn't about me anymore. It's about the audience and how they hear it. So I try to be very conscious of that. I mean, I certainly want me or some part of me to be expressed through my music, be that the music or the lyrics or hopefully both. But it really is about creating something that is universal, that someone else is going to hear this and see themselves in it. And I think if we as artists can provide that for an audience, honestly, it's a community service. I mean, because look, we do have something very unique and special that we offer, right? Not everyone has the ability to communicate and convey thoughts, feelings, emotions, stories through words and music. There's many people who can, but there are a lot of people who can't. But that's the reason why we have billions of listeners and probably millions of artists, right? If there's some ratio to be found.
Yeah, there's some ratio there. That's certainly more than not. Yeah.
Right, and that's the reason why we have so many listeners is because they actually discover something about themselves in the music, And I'm sure each of us can think about stories of music that has informed our lives and inspired us, right? And made us think bigger than just ourselves, right? I mean, that's what great music really does. Whether you're listening to a Duke Ellington classic or you're listening to Billie Eilish, right? It's you're going to find something in there that's like, wow, that is actually expanding my perspective, expanding my universe in a way that I would have never been able to get on my own.
Yeah, yeah. Especially those songs out there they're sort of multidimensional and deeper than you may think on the first, even years worth of listening. I've had songs I've listened to for years and then never really paid attention to the lyric. And then one day I was going through something in my own personal life and the lyrics somehow just sort of spoke to me. I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, this is what the song is really about? Or maybe it became about that because of my own personal experience, and it just spoke to me in so much, a much deeper thing. So, in my iPod, it goes from like a 3-star song to now a 5-star song. It's amazing. But that's like, after listening to it for like 10, 15, 20 years or something, and when you can see something else in it that you never noticed before, and that's the really great thing about the craftsmanship behind songwriting is that you can inject it with that kind of multi-dimensional thing, right? Because sometimes you write a song that's like, intensely vulnerable and the story is so profound, and then people listen to it and be like, hey, great hook. I love the beat. Exactly. All right. Yeah. That's good. That's good. But maybe a few years from now you'll get the message, and that's fine too. It's all good, right?
Sure. When I put out my debut album, New Moon, my daughters, who were 29 and 26, and this was a few years ago, there was my older daughter was doing her master's program, the other one was still in college, and they said, Dad, we love your record. I said, oh, what do you like about it? It's the best music to study by. So they found it just to be very serene and very peaceful, which is fantastic. I mean, I was so glad that I could be of service to them in that way. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's great. It's great to see how your music can inspire others.
Right on. Yeah. Very true. So what's what is this song out on streaming services and whatnot?
Yeah. I released it. It's on all the popular platforms out there. So definitely check it out. Spotify, Apple Music, and all the rest of them. YouTube. If you don't want to pay for a subscription to those things, you can go to YouTube Music and hear it there. And I'm performing May 9th. I performed the debut was at Bushwick Club. That was on April 12th. But May 9th, I'll be performing at the Royal Room here in Seattle. So any of the local Seattle listeners who are hearing this, or any folks in Toronto or Canada want to come down to Seattle, I'll be performing the Royal Room May 9th with a fabulous artist, Brittany Jean. She's a Northwest singer-songwriter, super accomplished, very talented. So I'll be opening for her at 8 o'clock on the May 9th. So come down to the Royal Room. It's a fabulous venue. So I'm really excited. And Bill Jones will be joining me on trumpet for that performance. Right, so it'll be a nice way to recreate that special moment.
Yeah. How do you play this song if you don't have the trumpet player? I guess you just skip the intro and skip the...
I honestly don't know if I'll perform it live a whole lot, so that's why May 9th will be special. Bushwick did record a video of it, so I'll put that up on my website here shortly as well, so look for that if you want to see the live video performance of just the guitar and the trumpet. And honestly, that's how I arranged it originally, and then once we got into the studio, working with my producer Alicia Healy, who I'll give a shout out to as well. We said, what else can we bring into this to create some more dynamic? And so piano and percussion seemed a nice complement.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. Awesome. Okay. I'm here in the band. That's all the time we have on Song Talk Radio. Special thanks to Mark Ippolito for joining us. And you mentioned your website. So where can listeners find out more about you and hear some of your music?
MarkIppolito.com. On Instagram, I post a lot of updates about upcoming music and shows. Mark Ip on Instagram. So check me out there.
Yep. Perfect. All right. We want to hear from you too. So please send your comments on Facebook or Instagram to @SongTalkRadio, or send us an email, feedback@songtalk.ca. Also be sure to check out our YouTube channel for live performance videos and full episodes, and subscribe today to the Song Talk Radio podcast on your favorite podcast provider. And please support us at our Patreon page. The link is on the website. And you can find links to all the products, books, and web services we mention on our resources page on the website. And please join us at our next monthly Song Talk meetup. Whether you're in Toronto for our in-person meetups or anywhere in the world for our online meetups, it's free to join on meetup.com and free to attend. Bring a song and a lyric sheet and get constructive feedback from other songwriters. Stop by songtalk.ca for the link. You can follow me at neilmodi.com. And Mark, what's your favorite social media channel? Where do you post the most? Is that Insta?
Instagram, and Mark Ip, MarKipp, double P like Peter Paul.
Awesome. Be sure to follow Mark there. And be sure to stop by the website, songtalk.ca, to browse past shows and find out how you can be a guest. Thanks for tuning in, and keep on writing. Cool. Yeah. That's super fascinating. Really great, really amazing sort of.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk with you and talk about, I could spend all day talking about songwriting and music. And so this is a joy. So I really am so grateful for both you and Phil, like I said, for the work you do and for inviting me on the show. It's been
awesome.
Real pleasure.
Oh, great. Yeah, it was so good to have you on. It's been too long because we've known each other for like years. And
I know.
This is the first time you've been a guest on the show. Yeah, it was over the pandemic.
Yeah,
and I admit, I think I came to one of the Seattle meetups, but they're hard because everything starts at 7 p.m.
Yeah, it's tough.
Pacific time,
East Coast,
which is 10 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah,
it's way past my bedtime.
There were a few diehards who would show up. Some folks who I met through, and they would show up. Coming from Toronto and other points east, and I was just like, wow, good for you. And they were like staying up till midnight. 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, that's too late for me. And you got to go to work in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. I'm collaborating right now with someone from Minnesota, so it's only like an hour difference.
Nice. By the way, have you done a show about remote collaboration?
No.
That might be an interesting topic. I have a number of songwriting friends here who are working on album projects typically. And I'm just fascinated that, they're like, oh yeah, I found this, saxophonist down in LA, or found a pianist in Albuquerque, and, they just sent me the stems and we put it on. And I'm like, how does that work? Like, how do you get, the vibe and I'd love to just know more about that. I'm intrigued by it because, here locally there's a finite set of resources, right? I mean, we've got a lot of them, but it'd be cool to be able to be like, I'd just love to, like, I have a piece, right? I have a song that I've written that I really would love to do with a full-on horn section, Barry, sax, trumpet, trombone, like, really full-on horn section, really, really hammer it out, And, there's a couple of combos. My friend Bill, now that I'm in relationship with him, he's going to try and help me out, but it'd be cool to just put out like, hey, is there a horn section out there ready to take this chart and record it for me? Mm-hmm. I'm sure it exists. I'm just not savvy enough about that kind of idea of remote collaboration, both, the initial outreach, but then the technical aspect, like, what do I need to make sure I give them? What do I get back? And how do we go through iterations? Because to me, that's part of what I see in the studio, like, working with Bill on the trumpet part. He was there for about 2 hours, and gave us a lot of different variations that then we could work with in the final mix. Mm-hmm. Just different phrases, slight adjustments, things like that. And maybe that's the luxury of having somebody live in the studio and you're giving that real-time feedback to one another.
For sure.
But it might be an interesting topic for a future show.
Yeah, I think so.
How are you doing it with your person in Minnesota or Minneapolis?
This was actually a songwriting challenge as well. I don't know if you know Chad Shank from Minnesota. He runs the At-Home Songwriting group. We connected with him. Sounds familiar. I'll look him up. We connected with him over the pandemic as well. And he has a community on Meetup, and he has a good YouTube channel and everything. And nice. He's actually teaching lyrics at Berkeley online.
Okay, right on.
and stuff. So, and he puts together these songwriting challenges. Well, last year we did like a 1-day challenge. It was like assigned on Saturday morning. You had to submit by Sunday morning. It was like 24 hours.
Oh, okay.
Then whip the thing off and super. But the challenge he just did a month ago, which is due actually 2 days from now, is collaborate with someone else in the group or a collaborator outside the group, whatever. Just collaborate with somebody and write a song together. And he gave two prescriptions. One was it had to be based on or from the point of view of an inanimate object, number one. And then he had one little lyric snippet. I think it was something like, "I knew that wasn't cool." That had to appear in your song somewhere. So those two things, and then make sure it's a collaboration. So, I mean, as far as technically, I've been going back and forth with this fellow that I met in the group in Minnesota. Never met him in real life, and met him a few times, I think, through his group, or saw him a few times on Zoom chats and things like that. And we just been going back and forth. Like I had the initial idea about what object to take and how to sort of spin it. And then I came up with...
And that's been by email, chat?
By email. We've connected over Zoom a few times.
Okay.
Just to talk about it and stuff. And then sort of started a Google Doc together where we write down some notes. We did a little brainstorming session, like a 5-minute object writing sort of thing, and jotted down some ideas together and that sort of thing. And, real time on the Google.
Just real time in Google Docs. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. But then after that, it was sort of back and forth. Like I'd record something, send it to him. It was just a verse and a chorus. Okay, here we go. I think the first thing I sent him was a chorus. I got an idea for a chorus. Here it is. Boom. What do you think? Oh, sounds great. Okay. Then he came up with a couple of verses, stuck it all together. And then, the final recording right now is him singing and playing guitar in his studio. Right. But given the lyrics we came up together, the melodies we came up together.
Sure. Yeah. The writing was a collaboration. Sure.
It turns out we both use. It turns out we both use the same recording software, so it was actually easy to send stuff back and forth. But actually, we didn't end up using each other's templates. We just sort of recorded from scratch every time because it was just little snippets and little sketches, sort of thing. And even by Saturday, it may not be a final product, but it's just a meetup group. Who cares?
Yeah. No, it's a demo. It's a demo. So
it's a demo.
Share.
So it's good. But we're actually pretty. I'm pretty happy with what we came up with. Like it's a finished song as far as I'm concerned right now. Like it's pretty good.
Yeah. No, I think it was you guys again. You guys provide so much great inspiration. I think it was like 2 years ago you did a show on collaboration. And good collaboration, and so it actually inspired me to do some co-writes over the last 18 months, and that's been super satisfying, super satisfying. Yeah. So I really enjoy that process, just getting out of your own head and bouncing ideas off of somebody else, and they're like, no, that sucks. No, leave that off to the side. I'm like, you're right. Thank you. And then other things that I would have disposed of, that they're like, oh no, that's like a gem right there. Keep that.
Right.
Oh, okay. I was ready to toss that out the window.
Right. Exactly.
So that is a lovely, and I've done it all in person.
It's great to have the support too, because like I said, like I just came up with a chorus, and I'm like, here. That's all I'm doing for today.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do that by yourself too, right? Just come up with a chorus. Say to yourself, today I'm just going to come up with a chorus.
Set it aside. Yeah.
Right, and then set it aside for another day. But it's nice to be able to hand it off to somebody, and next thing you know, 2 days later, here I wrote 2 verses. Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Because I never would have thought of I never would have thought of conceiving the verses in that way. And it fits perfectly with the chorus I wrote. Hey. This is jiving. It's working, right? Oh, well, maybe we'll tweak this line. Maybe we'll tweak that line, sort of thing. We've gone back and forth on a few little details and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
No, I have found, like I say, it's when somebody's open to that kind of collaboration, you come up with some really, really wonderful results. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I hope to record some of these in the future as well. We're talking about the one artist in particular. She's very keen on recording, so hopefully we'll get that one out there in the not too distant future.
Yeah. I think that's where the remote collaboration comes. It kind of gets a little iffy, especially if one of you doesn't have a decent enough recording facility. I mean, you can just record something on your phone. It's perfectly fine, right? But one of you at least probably should have some kind of a studio or something to be able to put the
Right. Yeah. I
finished
mean, if you're going to
product
try and
together.
record something for, posterity's sake, or, to actually release, you want to
Yeah, or even to
get
share
it
it,
done.
to
Yeah.
in a small way or whatever. There's got to be
Yeah.
something like that. It's not essential, but but the other bigger point, like you were alluding to, is check your ego at the door, right? Like, don't be too precious about what you brought to the table. If I suggest an idea and the other person's like, no, I'm not feeling it, fine, let's move on to something else. There's lots of ideas out
exactly.
there.
No, and as you say, I find it so refreshing because we're all our own worst critic, right? We've all got this little voice, at least I do. I've got the little voice in my, oh, that's no good, that's no good, that's no good, that's no good. Then you have somebody else, oh, no, you should keep that part. Yeah, that's all that stuff maybe you can set aside. But no, make sure you keep that in there. It's like, oh, great, So it is really nice to have that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well,
Well, my friend, thank you. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you and talk and exchange ideas around music and songwriting. And best to you and your family. Stay healthy.
Yep, you too.
Health is wealth. That's the number one thing. And after that, we just look out for each other and support one another the best we can.
Yes, we do. All right. Thanks so much, Mark. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Have a good night.
Give my best to Phil as well. Take care.
Yes, we'll do for sure. All right. Take care, Mark.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Have a good night.